Alright, in today's video we are going to modify this Jaymz Strat style kit. If you want to see how it was assembled following the instructions, and it currently has all the original parts including the strings, there's a video for that, as well as a video for an honest review of not just this kit but another kit that I put together. So let's get started. Alright, here's the game plan. First thing is I'm going to use some mica stains for the body and Tru-oil for the finishing. I'm going to replace the nut that the kit came with. I'm going to replace the tuners. These are Geiger tuners I got on Amazon, I want to say around $30. New string trees, you can see going with sort of a black theme here. New input jack and plate. Even though the guitar came with strap locks, again I'm just trying to change in the theme, so I got some new straps. And then you can see I've got one of these loaded pick guards, which we will be reviewing, and of course new strings. I didn't show the disassembly, just watch the assembly one in reverse, I guess. But here's what it looks like. I think the wood looks really cool, but as I said in one of the previous videos, there is a sealer on it. So the first thing I need to do is to sand past the sealer. So I used a palm sander since I had one, although you could certainly do it by hand. Started with pretty low grit, like around 140, 120, and then went to just around 300. And as it would turn out, that actually didn't quite do the job. There was still some sealer left on it, which we'll find out here in a minute when I try putting some stain on there. So I'll end up having to come back and go at it a little bit more. So just again, if you get one of these Jaymz kits, if you want to paint it, you're good to go, man. This sealer's fantastic, but if you want to stain it, just know you're going to definitely have to do some sanding to get through that sealer. And as I've said in previous videos, the only thing worse than sanding is watching somebody sand, so I'm going to skip ahead to the next step. So at this point I wasn't sure if I was just going to do an amber or if I wanted to do kind of a sunburst with black on the edges and amber. So I started with the amber, and at least in my opinion, actually this looked really good. Really brought out the grain, but it also showed me there were several areas where the stain was not taking. So ultimately, and unfortunately, after putting on this first coat, I would have to take it back out and do some more sanding. So we're actually going to pick this up after the second round of sanding, so the guitar will basically look pretty clean again, and try again. Alright, the game plan here is to try my hand at a two-tone sunburst. You can see the colors here, black on the outside edges, maybe spilling over just a little bit onto the front and the back, and the rest of it will be that yellow or amber color. Even after 2 rounds of sanding, you'll see places like there on the end that just don't take the stain as well. I did go ahead and stain the whole thing, and then I took it back out to the garage yet again and kind of refocused on those areas. So I guess, this could be good or bad. You got to give it to Jaymz, man. They put a hell of a sealer on these things. I'm definitely not one that should be teaching anybody how to do painting or staining. But what I will say is, if you make a mistake, you can always sand it back down. So, don't be afraid to give it a try. And, you can have some fun with it too. My personal philosophy is I'm not out for anything professional. I mean, this is a $69 guitar kit, and what a perfect way to learn. So maybe if I ever do want to do a stain on a, let's just say, a much more expensive investment, maybe I'll have a little better idea of what to avoid, or at least how to do it. All right, with the edges done, I'm now moving on to the yellow. And as I hope you can see, it actually brought the grain out very nicely. And when you're doing a burst, there's going to be a lot of back and forth along the edges, a lot of blending, kind of so you don't have such a hard transition from the black to the yellow or whatever colors you choose. A lot of people do a 3-tone sunburst, but I don't want to put any red in it, so I just decided to do this 2-tone. Of course, there's nothing more subjective than color. So you guys watching this may think that's cool, or you may absolutely hate it. I've never had one that this was this particular combination, so that's why I'm doing it. As I said, there's a lot of blending that goes to kind of make these two colors match up nicely. So what I'm going to do is kind of skip ahead so you can see basically where I landed, where I was happy with it. Alright, so here we go. As you can see, I opted for a pretty soft blend. There's not a huge transition between the two colors. I looked online and saw a variety of sunbursts. There's really no doing it wrong, by the way. I mean, it's just a purely subjective thing, but I kind of just like that extreme from the really dark edges to the light yellow. So that's what I went with. Alright, while the stain is drying, it's time to address the neck. I said previously that I was very happy with the necks in actually both the kits, these Leo Jaymz kits. They came straight. The fretwork was very decent, and here shortly I will look to see if there's any fret leveling that needs to be done. But first, and very important, is before you do any fret leveling, you want to make sure the neck is perfectly straight. So that's what I'm doing here. If you want to build guitars, or just actually, honestly, if you just own a guitar, this is a tool that you need just to make sure that your neck is straight, or at least with whatever relief you want in it, you have a good starting point. Alright, here's some other tools of the trade that every guitar player should own. First up is a fret rocker. Notice different lengths, and really this is just to make sure that you don't have any high frets. So you always do 3 at a time, and you can see I'm just working it. I always test 3 spots, the farthest, the middle, the closest, and then get yourself a marker and mark any egregious areas that need to be dealt with. If it's a lot of them, you'll probably end up needing some kind of a level device with sandpaper and literally sand them all down even at the same time. Or like in the case of this one, if it's just a few areas here and there, I usually just go right to addressing those very specific areas with the crowning tool, which you'll see me use here shortly. Alright, with all the high spots identified, here's the crowning tool that I referenced earlier. There's a wide variety of them. This one has 2 different sizes. There's some, I think I have one that has maybe 3 or even 4 different sizes. You can find them on Amazon or Temu or StewMag, pretty much any place that sells guitar parts. And this is just a really critical tool if you want to have the ultimate playable experience, because high frets are usually going to be a nightmare when it comes to the enjoyment of playing your guitar. It makes intonation difficult and getting a nice low action pretty much impossible. Alright, after addressing the frets, basically it's rinse and repeat. I go back and I do it all again. So it's exactly the same method. Use my rocker. If there's any high spots, go identify them and then go after them. So, repeat this 2, maybe 3 times until everything is just perfect. Alright, next it's time to polish, and I'm using this little kit. They're called fret erasers. Basically, they kind of look like old school pencil erasers, but they're sanding, for sanding, and they come in 3 different grits. So you just go through all 21 or 22 of your frets, or however many you have, with the lowest up to the highest until you have a nice smooth finish. Okay, I use these fret erasers. That's a pretty cheap way to make these things reasonably smooth. Actually, it does a pretty good job. For a $69 kit, perhaps the most surprising is this is actually a pretty good neck. You saw me check all the frets to see if they were level, and while there were a few spots that I had to deal with, they were very minor. To be clear, they were by no means horrible. The neck was straight as an arrow, and that's awesome for doing leveling. You know, you never want to level them when the neck isn't straight, and it was perfectly straight, which means under tension it'll have perhaps just a very slight bow, back bow, which is great. You want it a little bit, or either straighter with a little bit. So, I mean, I'm very impressed for a $69 kit. The fretwork was really good. The edges are completely, I don't know what they call that, but rounded off, I guess. I'm not feeling any sharp edges. The frets are level, and they didn't really need much. I just polished them with these fret erasers, and it's good to go. So I'm gonna look and see what this material is here. I'm not sure what it is. Doesn't look like rosewood, but maybe it is. We'll find out here shortly. And then it looks thirsty, so we're going to address that next. So I looked on the website, and apparently that fretboard is Indian laurel, which visually to me kind of looks something between pau ferro and rosewood, although it's wood, so every sample is going to be different. But as I said earlier, it definitely seems very dry, so I am going to use some of this oil just to bring it back to life, and then we'll take a look at the nut. There's a lot of different types of oils people use on the fretboard. Just make sure whatever you choose is compatible with whatever fretboard material that you have. So as I said in the review, the nut is definitely a weak part of this kit. It was way too high, or if you prefer, the grooves weren't near deep enough. So I knew going into it, this was something that needed to be replaced. So I'm just pulling out the old nut and getting another one on standby, so we can absolutely make sure this guitar has good action, good intonation, and enjoyable playability. And here you see the nut I've chosen to replace the stock one with. There's many different materials, and honestly I'm not sure if there's one better than the other. I think most important is that the depth for the strings is correct, as well as the width. Alright, the final thing for consideration is the finish that you want on the neck. Gloss, satin, no finish. I like using this Tru-oil. Technically, Tru-oil is a gun stock oil, but I've used it on many necks over the years, and I love it. It's easy to work with. You just apply thin coats. It takes an hour or two. I usually let it sit about 2 hours between coats, and you just put it on until it's the shininess or the feel that you like. For me, that usually lands somewhere around 5 coats. Alright, so today and probably through tomorrow, I'm going to be putting the Tru-oil finish on the body and on the neck. The body's different. I don't know if it's cool or not, I haven't decided. It definitely came out different than what I pictured. But I can't say I don't like it, it's just different. So we're we're gonna go ahead and move forward. Again, you can always just sand it off, try something else, but I think I'll go with that. The neck, we did all the work yesterday, so today's just really about putting the seal coat on it, the Tru-oil. And maybe for fun, I might put a Headstock logo, and I can tell you guys how to do that. It's very simple. Just because I think it looks a little naked without something there, and I won't put Fender. Don't ever do that. Don't ever put a false name on it. You know, make up your own name, put your last name, whatever. So anyways, that's what the task for today is. And then on a side note, yesterday, this trim system came in, and I couldn't be more impressed with how they packaged it. I went with Geiger. Geiger and Wilkinson, by the way, are two very budget, I don't know if this is the right word or not, but they're kind of budget aftermarket parts that are quality. At least in my opinion, they're quality. I use Geiger and Wilkinson tuners, pickups, pretty much everything. And so for the first time ever, I'm trying this trim system, and already we're off to a great start. Look at the box this thing came in. This is fantastic. Just so impressed. I mean, this isn't a real expensive system. I want to say I spent maybe, and I'm guessing here, 50, 60 bucks on it, something like that. Comes in this awesome box. There's your trim bar, your screws, your springs, your claw, and it's brass. And I know there's no way you guys can sense this, but this is a very nice, heavy-duty brass block that it has on there. I mean, the other one was half of this, so this should make all the difference in the world. And it looks like it's gonna just drop right in. The holes look like they're lining up perfect, so I'm really super excited about this Geiger trim system. Of course, we'll be reviewing that when we're done putting everything together. Okay, one thing I want to mention with this Tru-oil is you don't ever want to, if you're going to use a rag or paper towel and you start saturating it, you don't ever want to throw it in your garbage. It can get very hot. I mean, I realize that's not likely, but it's possible that it can get hot, start smoking, cause all sorts of problems. So dispose of your rags accordingly. You can even just get them wet, but I usually put them in a bag and then take it straight outside into the outside garbage. So just something to be aware of if you choose to go that route. Yesterday we did one layer on this neck, but today we'll go ahead and get going. You want to do probably one coat, a light coat, I usually do it maybe every 2 hours. I don't think doing it sooner than that is necessary. Maybe when you first start, because it absorbs a lot. Again, you can use a rag if you want. I just prefer to use some gloves and just rub it in. Again, light coats is what we're going for. And what I like about this particular coating is it doesn't really alter the wood. What I mean is it's not adding really any color other than just that sort of darkening effect from it being wet, but making it look like it's wet. But other than that, you get stay pretty true to the original wood color. If that's what you want, that's a good choice. Some of them have kind of a yellowing or ambering kind of an effect, which of course might be what you want, but for me, I kind of just like the look of this wood, so I didn't want to do any kind of staining or dyeing, so I'm going to leave it just like this. And again, light coat, I don't get too carried away. And then for the first couple rounds, I do put some here. It's not going to be enough to change the fitting any, but I want it protected everywhere. Probably won't do any more than a couple coats back here where you screw it in, but I do put at least one or two on there. And then we definitely do not want to put any on the fretboard. We treated that in the last section. So, all right, so I'm gonna let him chill. Here's another great tool, by the way, for working on guitars. Okay, so this is the very first coat, so I suspect this one's gonna really soak it in. That would be kind of protocol, so I'll go a little heavier on the first one. I'm gonna start with the back. Oh yeah, she's just soaking right in there, which is what I expect. Yeah, as I suspect, this first layer is just soaking up really, really fast, so I'll go considerably thicker on this one than I will on subsequent layers, just to get that ball rolling. Of course, I sanded away all of the sealant so I could stain it. I could have put sealant back on, or some kind of grain filler just to help with this process. All right, I'm gonna shut up from here, speed this tape up, but you get the idea. First coat probably be a little bit heavier because of the absorption issue, and then subsequent coats after that, just go light. You can use glove, you can use a shop towel, a rag, it doesn't matter. But just take your time and be methodical. Always do it in the same order so you don't forget, because if you're doing 10, 12 coats, if you do it in the same order, you're less likely to get confused about where you left off.
I don't have anything else to add. I think I covered it pretty good considering I was winging it. What I will say is I think it'll end up being 10 to 12 coats on the body versus about 5 on the neck. Again, totally a personal preference. I'm not going to show all of those layers. This should suffice. You get the idea. So next, we're going to do the Headstock Decal, and then I will return to the guitar once everything is coated to my satisfaction.
Okay, at this point, I've put 3 nice coats on the neck. So I thought it would be cool to add my own decal. Now, you can get decals online. Pretty much any place you get guitar parts. I've seen them, some pretty cool ones on a guitar fetish site, or at least they used to have some. But you can also make your own, and you don't really need anything fancy. If you need water slide paper, just make sure you get the right kind. Some have white backing, so that white will show, and some are clear. This is clear. The other thing is you're going to need a printer. If you have a laser printer, you're really good to go, but if you don't, just an old-fashioned dot matrix, you're still good to go. Make up whatever your logo or whatever you want to put on your neck. You might as well print a whole page full of them in case you make a mistake or whatever. And then the other thing you'll need is some kind of a clear coat. And you can see what I'm just using, a Krylon Color Max Gloss Clear. And do not forget this step, because if you don't do this, all the ink will come off. So print this out, take it wherever, give it a nice coating, let it dry for a little bit, do another coating, let it dry, whatever the dry time should be on here, a couple hours. And then you can cut it out as however you want, and lay it out on the neck however you want. So I'm going to turn off the camera so I can do all that prep work. You don't have to watch me, but then when I come back, we'll apply the decals. All right, once your decals are cut out, you just need a little warm water to submerge them in. It doesn't take too long, but basically that'll allow the backing to come off. So in she goes. You can kind of test, I can see it's already sliding off. So now I just transfer it over to where I want it on the guitar and pull the backing off and then center it wherever I want. Little paper towel on standby to blot around it. And you got a few minutes to work with it. at least till you get the paper or the water out from underneath it. All right, it's the same thing for the bigger logo, so I'm going to close in on that so you can see what it looks like. Now I've got my little custom original and the name that I'm putting on the guitar. As for when to do it in the finishing process, you definitely want to wait until you've had a few coats, 2 or 3 coats, or whatever you're finishing it with. I've had 3 coats of Tru-oil on it, and then the water slide stickers, and then this one's going to end up, I think, getting 5, maybe 6. It's already getting about where I like it, so I'm not going to go too much more, but you want to make sure you at least put 1 or 2 over it to sort of seal it into place. So once it dries, it's actually time for the next coat. I'll go ahead and put at least 1 more, maybe 2 more coats. And what a cool way to customize your guitar for virtually no cost at all. You need a little paper, but you can use that paper for more guitars than you'll ever build. And, you know, a $5 can of clear spray paint. So, a pretty cool way to do it. All right, I realized yesterday I forgot a pretty important detail when you're using this Tru-oil, and that's after 2 or 3 coats, you should hit it with some steel wool, this quadruple aught. It's kind of like the equivalent of wet sanding on a clear coat. It just kind of knocks down, especially in the early stages where you might go kind of thick, kind of knocks down any of the high stuff, kind of polished it up. You can see after about 5 coats, well, hopefully you can see, this neck is actually getting quite a bit of a shine on it, so I think I'm probably done with it. It looks great, but what I want to do is sort of smooth that down a little bit. So I'm going to hit this with some steel wool just to get it where I want it, and then I'll be done with that. This one, I'm probably only halfway done. Looks cool, looks great, but before I put any more on, I can see there's some spots that have a little bit of high marks, you know, just a little bit, so this will knock that down. So don't forget, again, not expensive, but really a nice, it's actually really important to keep it super smooth, is to get some steel wool. All right, I won't make you watch me do this anymore. We'll get back to you when everything is done, but I did want to mention the steel wool thing. It's important. All right, today is final assembly setup day, but real quick, here's what the body looks like after my Micah Powder sunburst job, and I'd say roughly 12, maybe 15 coats of Tru-oil. I honestly lost track because I did it over the course of several days. Looks are subjective. You may think it looks cool, maybe not. I like it, it's good enough. So we're gonna go with that. And then the neck, again, the Tru-oil. I think this may be about half as many, so 5, 6, somewhere in there, coats. And then as far as the upgrades go, every part of this kit, all the hardware is going away and being replaced. So on the neck, we'll have new tuners, a new nut. Of course, you guys already saw me do what little fretwork needed to be done. Not very much, quite impressive. And saw me put some oil on the fretboard. So the necks should be great when we're done. And then as far as the body goes, the upgrades, again, everything the kit came with is going away. So we're gonna put a loaded pick guard on. That's the sketchiest of my upgrades. It's one of those from Amazon, like 30 some, 40 bucks. That everything's pre-wired. It does have Alnico 5 pickups as opposed to the ceramic ones, so I'm hoping it'll be a significant upgrade, but if not, you know, hey, I got a pick guard, I can always put new pickups and wiring and stuff in it. And then the jack plate, it's basically not an upgrade, it's just a different color, black. And then the one thing that's definitely an upgrade will be the new trim system, so I'm excited to check that out. And maybe a downgrade is the guitar actually came with strap locks, which is kind of amazing for a $70 kit, but I don't really like the looks of strap locks. They're just bulky, stick way out, so I'm gonna go back to more traditional strap button, but I will use the little black washer. So let's get started. So real quick, I just wanted to show you the difference between a normal CTS pot and the dime size ones that this preloaded pick guard came with. Does that mean there's just going to be a problem, or that's not going to sound good? Not necessarily, but I just wanted to point that out. So even though the pick guard is pre-wired, there are still 3 points that need to be soldered. I need to solder a ground to the claw of the trim system, and then we need to solder the hot and the ground to the jack plate. So what I'm doing here is I'm just securing it with a couple screws, just so I can flip it back and forth and make the soldering easier without having things flying all over the place. This is definitely not a tutorial on how to do anything, so I'm going to kind of breeze by this, but basically at this point I am just doing the solder work needed to be done so we can start the final assembly. Now I'm just screwing down the jack plate. Remember, this was a kit, so all those holes are pre-drilled. The only place we'll run into trouble is when it comes time to screw down the pick guard, where oddly enough, some of them were lined up perfectly, but several of them were not. This came as a real surprise. The claw actually has a screw so you can secure the ground wire without having to solder it. What a cool design, and I wonder why more don't do that. That's just absolutely fantastic. And here I'm just screwing the claw into the body. And here I'm just testing the pickups before I secure everything down to make sure they work in all 5 positions. And naturally, some of the holes lined up, some didn't. In the areas where they didn't, I just used a drill to get it started. Fortunately, pine's very soft wood, so it was very easy to put new screws in the proper place. And here was by far the best upgrade. This tremolo kit from Geiker. This thing was really fantastic. At the end of this, I will put together a cost list so you can see how much everything cost, including the kit and the upgrades. But this is definitely well worth the investment. And as luck would have it, this new trim system, the holes lined up perfectly to the existing holes in the guitar. The only almost problem I encountered is when I went to put in the screws, I could only find 5 of them. So I was super bummed. It meant I'd have to use a silver one from the previous setup. But lo and behold, when I grabbed the springs to put on the trim in the back, one of the screws had fallen out. It was just wedged in the spring, so it all worked out. Alright, on to the neck. It got new tuners. I believe they're made by Wilkinson. Kind of an interesting where there's 2 holes through it. So you go through the lower one, then twist the string around and bring it through the upper one. And then also some new roller style string trees. And finally a new nut. I know that's tough to read, but I went with a tusk nut. Alright, time to re-secure the neck to the body and then put on a quality set of strings. I decided on Ernie Ball 9s, like a little lighter string with the trem system. And here we are. After a setup,
the guitar is ready to go. I'm sure you're curious what it sounds like. Well, you've been listening to it throughout this video. But just for fun, I'll end this video with the comparison between the original kit unmodified and the guitar as it looks today. But first, as promised, here is the total that I spent on this guitar. I didn't go deep in the weeds with sandpaper and the different finishes because, quite frankly, whatever you do will probably be different and have its own cost. But for the hardware, the upgrades, they're looking at roughly $250. That's pretty outstanding for a very decent guitar.